If he finds out, we make him look unstable.
3:15 a.m. That's when insomniacs like me become philosophers, sitting in dark kitchens with cold coffee, wondering how 22 years of marriage can evaporate faster than steam from a mug. The house creaked around me like an old ship, and I listened to the familiar sounds of our Victorian home settling into another sleepless night. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Alex Rourke, and I used to think I knew my wife. The front door whispered open with the practiced stealth of someone who'd done this before. Veronica slipped inside, her heels dangling from manicured fingers, designer purse clutched against her chest like armor. She froze when she saw me sitting at the kitchen island, coffee mug raised in a mock toast. "Working late at the law school again?" I asked, my voice carrying just enough sarcasm to cut through her rehearsed explanation. "Alex, you startled me." She set her purse down with trembling hands. "Yes, faculty meeting ran long. You know how Professor Morrison drones on about curriculum changes. Morrison retired 6 months ago. Strike one." I studied her face in the dim light filtering through our kitchen windows. New perfume, something expensive and musky that definitely wasn't the vanilla scent she'd worn for 15 years. A faint purple mark on her neck that makeup couldn't quite hide. One earring missing from the diamond set I'd given her for our anniversary. "I should get some sleep," she said, already moving toward the stairs. "Court appearance tomorrow. Ronnie." She stopped, shoulders tensing. "You forgot your phone." I held up her iPhone, watching her expression shift from relief to panic in the space of a heartbeat. She'd been clutching it when she walked in, but somehow it had ended up on the counter next to my coffee. "Thanks," she said, snatching it from my hand. Our fingers brushed, and I felt the tremor in hers. After she disappeared upstairs, I sat in the darkness for another hour, thinking about the small device I'd connected to her phone while she fumbled with her shoes. 20 years in military intelligence teaches you useful skills. Some wives get flowers. Mine got surveillance. The next morning brought autumn sunshine and the bitter taste of confirmation. Her phone had been busy overnight. Dozens of messages to and from JC that painted a picture no husband wants to see. "Can't wait to feel you again. Tell Alex you're working late tomorrow too. The plan is moving perfectly. He suspects nothing." A photo of my wife in black lingerie taken in what looked like her law school office, sent at 11:47 p.m. I was still staring at the screen when my son Sam bounded down the stairs, backpack slung over his shoulder, ready for another day at the local college where he was majoring in computer science. "Dad, you look like hell," he said, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl. At 18, Sam had inherited his mother's sharp intelligence and my talent for reading people. "Everything okay?" "Just tired, kiddo. How's school going?" "Fine, but—" He hesitated, apple halfway to his mouth. "I saw Mom yesterday. She was with some guy near the campus coffee shop. Tall, dark hair, driving a black BMW. They looked pretty friendly." The apple crunched loudly in the silence that followed. "Thanks for telling me," I said. Sam studied my face with those intelligent eyes. "Dad, if something's wrong—" "Nothing's wrong that can't be fixed," I lied. After Sam left for classes, I sat alone in my home office, surrounded by the detritus of my struggling security consulting business. 3 clients, 2 of them behind on payments, and a wife who was apparently planning something that required me to suspect nothing. The anonymous envelope arrived at noon, slipped under my front door while I was in the shower. No postmark, no return address, just a manila envelope containing a single photograph. My wife and a man I recognized as Dr. Jeremy Connors, tenured business professor, kissing passionately against a brick wall. The timestamp read 2 days ago, 3:22 p.m. I knew Jeremy by reputation, Harvard MBA, published author, the kind of academic who drove luxury cars and vacationed in the Hamptons. He was everything I wasn't: polished, connected, and apparently irresistible to faculty wives looking for excitement. But I was something he wasn't: trained to fight dirty. The quarry sat on the edge of town like a comfortable old boot, the kind of bar where professors rubbed elbows with construction workers and nobody cared about your credentials as long as your money was green. I'd been coming here for 10 years, ever since we moved to Maine, and the bartender Tina knew my drink before I sat down. "Bourbon, neat, and that look that says someone's about to get their ass kicked," she said, sliding the glass across scarred wood. Tina was 40-something, with silver-streaked hair and the kind of worldly wisdom that came from listening to drunk people's problems for 2 decades. "That obvious?" I asked. "Honey, I've seen that expression on every man who's walked in here after discovering his wife's been playing house with someone else. The only question is whether you're going to do something smart or something stupid." I took a sip of bourbon and felt it burn away some of the rage that had been building all day. "What would you consider smart? Information first, action second. Revenge served cold tastes better than revenge served hot." She leaned against the bar, lowering her voice. "And since you're asking, your wife's been in here 3 times in the past month with Harvard hairdo. They weren't discussing legal briefs, if you catch my meaning. Harvard hairdo? Dr. Jeremy Connors thinks he's God's gift to academia and married women, always tips exactly 15% and complains about the wine selection." Tina's expression soured. "Arrogant prick. But he's got money and connections, which apparently matters to some people. Anyone else seen them together? Cassandra Hyde, your wife's friend from the paralegal office. She's been covering for them, making excuses, running interference. Real loyal friend, that one." The sarcasm in Tina's voice could have stripped paint. I finished my bourbon and left a 20 on the bar. "Thanks, Tina. Alex?" I turned back. "Whatever you're planning, be careful. Men like Connors don't fight fair, and they've got resources you don't." Lucky for me, I don't fight fair either. That evening, I set my trap. Over dinner, take-out Chinese that Ronnie picked at while checking her phone, I mentioned running into an old army buddy who was in town for a conference. I was thinking of taking him to lunch tomorrow at that new place downtown. "Want to join us?" "I can't," she said quickly. "Faculty meeting." "Another one? Seems like you've had a lot of those lately." Her laugh sounded forced. "You know how it is. Publish or perish. The academic world never sleeps." "Neither do security consultants," I said, watching her face. "I've been getting some interesting contracts lately. Surveillance work mostly. Amazing what technology can do these days. Hidden cameras, phone monitoring, GPS tracking. Big Brother would be jealous." Ronnie's fork clattered against her plate. "That sounds invasive." "Only if you have something to hide." After dinner, while she showered, I slipped a small recording device into her purse. Military grade, voice activated, with a 12-hour battery life. If she was planning something, I wanted to hear it. The next morning brought payoff better than I'd hoped. Ronnie met Cassie at a coffee shop downtown, and their conversation came through crystal clear on my headphones. "He's getting suspicious," Ronnie said. "Last night he was talking about surveillance equipment. Relax. Alex is a washed-up security consultant with 3 clients and a drinking problem. What's he going to do? Follow us around with binoculars?" "I'm serious, Cassie. If he finds out about Jeremy before we're ready..." "Before we're ready for what? You're divorcing him anyway." "It's not that simple. Alex has military training. He could be dangerous if he feels cornered. We need to control the narrative, make it look like he's unstable, paranoid, maybe even threatening." "You want to set him up?" "I want to protect myself and Sam. If Alex looks like the bad guy, I get the house, full custody, and alimony. Jeremy's already talked to his lawyer about the best approach." "And if Alex doesn't cooperate?" There was a long pause before Ronnie answered. then we'll have to make sure he does. I sat in my car outside the coffee shop, watching my wife of 22 years plot my destruction with the casual efficiency of a corporate merger. The woman who'd promised to love and honor me was discussing my character assassination like a weekend shopping trip. But she'd made one critical error. She'd underestimated exactly how dangerous a cornered ex-intelligence officer could be. That afternoon, I followed her to Jeremy's condo, a glass and steel monument to academic success in the city's upscale district. Through telephoto lens, I captured them embracing in his living room, her hands tangled in his hair, his mouth on her throat. I was uploading the photos to my secure server when footsteps echoed in the parking garage behind me. "You lost, buddy?" I turned to find a mountain of muscle in a tight t-shirt and gold chains. This had to be Dino Lister, Jeremy's gym partner and apparent enforcer. He had the kind of artificially enhanced physique that screamed steroid abuse of someone who'd never met a problem he couldn't solve with violence. "Just leaving," I said, closing my laptop. "Good idea. This is a private building, residents only." He stepped closer, trying to use his size to intimidate me. "Maybe you should find somewhere else to take pictures." I stood slowly, letting him see all 6 feet 2 inches of me. Military posture has a way of changing the dynamic in situations like this. You know, Dino, intimidation works better when you're dealing with someone who hasn't been shot at by actual professionals. I smiled, the kind of expression that never reached my eyes. But I appreciate the effort, really, very theatrical. His confidence wavered. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't. Tell Jeremy that Alex Rourke says hello. And Dino?" I leaned closer, dropping my voice to a whisper. "Next time we chat, remember that I know things about you that would make your parole officer very interested. Have a great day." I walked away, leaving him standing in the garage with his mouth open. Sometimes the best weapon is information, and I'd spent the morning researching everyone in Jeremy's orbit. Dino's criminal record made for fascinating reading. But as I drove home, I found something awful. A burner phone hidden in Ronnie's purse, discovered when I retrieved my recording device. The message history was brief, but terrifying. If Alex becomes a problem, we may need to take a more direct approach. How direct? Whatever it takes to protect our future, including Sam, if necessary. My hands shook as I read those words. They weren't just planning to destroy me. They were willing to threaten my son. The war was about to begin, and I intended to win. The attack came at midnight, 3 days later, in my own garage. I'd been expecting something. The burner phone messages had made that clear, but I hadn't expected them to move so fast. I was checking the locks on my workshop when I heard the soft whisper of the side door opening behind me. Training kicked in before conscious thought. I dropped and rolled left as something whistled through the air where my head had been. A tire iron clattered against the concrete floor, and I came up facing a man in a ski mask, holding what looked like a suppressed pistol. "Nothing personal," he said, raising the weapon. Everything personal, I thought, launching myself forward. 20 years of military training doesn't disappear just because you're pushing 50. I hit him low and hard, driving my shoulder into his solar plexus and sending us both crashing into my workbench. Tools scattered everywhere as we fought for control of the gun. He was younger and probably stronger, but I was meaner and definitely more experienced. I got my thumb behind his trigger finger and twisted until I heard bones crack. The gun clattered away into the darkness as he screamed behind his mask. "Who sent you?" I demanded, pinning him against the concrete floor. "Go to hell!" I found his phone in his jacket pocket and used his thumb to unlock it. The message history told me everything I needed to know. "Package will be delivered tonight. Make it look like a break-in." The response, "Understood. What about the kid if he's home?" "Whatever keeps him quiet." My vision went red. They'd been willing to hurt Sam. I zip-tied the intruder's hands behind his back and removed his mask, revealing a face I didn't recognize, probably one of Dino's criminal contacts. Then I did something that would have horrified my old self. I took his phone and started typing. Package delivered, awaiting further instructions. The response came within minutes. Meet at Riverside Motel, room 12, tomorrow 8 p.m. for payment. Bring proof. I looked down at my would-be killer, unconscious and secured. Thanks for the invitation. The next evening, I sat in my car outside the Riverside Motel, watching room 12 through binoculars. At exactly 8 o'clock, a black BMW pulled into the parking lot. Jeremy Connors stepped out, followed by my wife. They looked nervous, checking over their shoulders as they approached the motel room door. Ronnie carried a manila envelope that probably contained payment for my murder. The woman I'd loved for over 2 decades had just tried to have me killed. I gave them 5 minutes to get settled, then knocked on the door. Housekeeping, I called in a falsetto voice. Jeremy opened the door, and his face went white when he saw me standing there with a digital recorder in one hand and a thick manila folder in the other. Surprise, I said, pushing past him into the room. Ronnie sat on the edge of the bed, the payment envelope clutched in her lap. She looked like she'd seen a ghost, which wasn't far from wrong. Hello, darling, I said. Fancy meeting you here. Alex, I can explain. Please do. I'm fascinated to hear how you explain hiring someone to kill me. I held up the phone I'd taken from the intruder. The message history makes for riveting reading, especially the part about keeping Sam quiet. Jeremy tried to move toward the door, but I blocked his path. Going somewhere, Professor? We haven't been properly introduced. I'm Alex Rourke, the husband you've been trying to murder. This is insane, Jeremy said. I don't know what you're talking about. I opened my folder and spread photographs across the motel room's small table. Jeremy and Ronnie kissing, embracing, entering his condo together. Audio transcripts of their conversations. Bank records showing payments to known criminals. I've been busy, I said. 20 years in military intelligence teaches you useful skills, like how to gather evidence, how to track financial transactions, how to make people disappear. Ronnie's face had gone pale. You're threatening us. I'm educating you. See, while you were planning my murder, I was planning something much more creative. I pulled out my phone and showed them the screen. I've sent copies of everything to the State Bar Association, the University Ethics Board, Jeremy's department head, and his wife. I've also forwarded the criminal conspiracy evidence to the district attorney's office. You're bluffing, Jeremy said, but his voice cracked. Am I? Check your email. They both grabbed their phones, and I watched their faces crumble as they read the automated delivery confirmations. By tomorrow morning, everyone will know exactly what you've been doing. The affairs, the conspiracy, the attempted murder. Your careers are over, your reputations are destroyed, and Jeremy, your wife's divorce attorney, is going to have a field day with this evidence. Ronnie started crying, but I felt nothing. The woman sobbing on that motel bed wasn't the person I'd married. That person had died the moment she decided I was expendable. What do you want? Jeremy asked. Justice, and I'm just getting started. The door burst open, and Cassie Hyde rushed in, probably thinking she was coming to Ronnie's rescue. She stopped when she saw me standing there with evidence of their conspiracy spread across the table. Cassie, I said cheerfully. Perfect timing. I was just about to play some audio recordings for your friends here. Would you like to hear the one where you discuss the best way to frame me for domestic violence? Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. That's what I thought. By the way, your employer received copies of everything about an hour ago. Something about paralegals having ethical obligations, too. The three of them stood there in that shabby motel room, their conspiracy crumbling around them like a house of cards in a hurricane. But I wasn't finished, not even close. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to confess everything to the authorities. You're going to make full financial restitution for your crimes, and you're going to stay the hell away from me and my son." "And if we don't?" Jeremy asked. I smiled, and this time it was genuinely warm. "Then I release the really interesting stuff. Like Jeremy's creative bookkeeping with research grants, or Cassie's little side business selling confidential client information, or Ronnie's plagiarized law review articles from 15 years ago." The silence stretched until it became unbearable. "How long have you known?" Ronnie whispered. "About the affairs? Weeks? About the murder plot? Since last night? About what kind of people you really are?" I looked at each of them in turn. "I'm still figuring that out." I gathered my evidence and headed for the door, then stopped and turned back. "Oh, and one more thing. Tomorrow night is the annual university charity gala. I'll be there. All of you should probably stay home." The University of Maine's annual charity gala was the social event of the academic year, held in the grand ballroom of the historic Eastland Park Hotel. Faculty, administrators, and wealthy donors gathered in their finest attire to celebrate another year of educational excellence and to open their wallets for various worthy causes. I'd never enjoyed these events, but tonight was different. Tonight, I had a purpose. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my best suit and the kind of confident smile that made people nervous. The ballroom buzzed with conversation and the gentle clink of champagne glasses. A string quartet played Mozart in the corner while servers circulated with hors d'oeuvres and drinks. Jeremy stood near the silent auction tables, resplendent in a tuxedo that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. He was holding court with a group of potential donors, his Harvard charm on full display. He hadn't seen me yet. Ronnie was across the room with the other law faculty, elegant, in a black evening gown that I'd helped her pick out last month. She looked beautiful and poised, every inch the respected professor. Only the tension in her shoulders betrayed her anxiety. Cassie lurked near the bar, trying to look casual while keeping watch on both of her co-conspirators. She jumped every time someone approached her. I grabbed a bourbon from a passing server and began working the room, greeting colleagues and acquaintances with the easy confidence of someone who had nothing to hide. Several people commented on how relaxed I looked, how good it was to see me socializing again. If only they knew. "Alex," Dr. Patricia Morrison, the retired professor whose name Ronnie had used to cover her affair, approached with a warm smile. "How wonderful to see you here. Ronnie mentioned you might not be able to make it." "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I said. "These academic gatherings are so educational." 20 minutes of small talk later, I made my move. Jeremy was still surrounded by his admirers, discussing his latest research project with the kind of passionate intensity that made wealthy widows write checks. "Excuse me," I said, inserting myself into the circle with practiced ease. "Dr. Connors, isn't it? I don't think we've been properly introduced. Alex Rourke." Jeremy's face went pale, but he couldn't make a scene without drawing unwanted attention. "Mr. Rourke, how nice to finally meet you. Likewise, I've heard so much about you from my wife. She speaks very highly of your collaboration." The donors looked confused by the sudden tension, but Jeremy forced a smile. "Ronnie is a brilliant colleague. We've worked together on several projects." "Yes, I know. I've seen the evidence of your work together, very intimate research methods." One of the elderly donors, a woman with sharp eyes and expensive jewelry, sensed something interesting was happening. "What kind of research do you do together?" "Oh, they study human behavior," I said, before Jeremy could answer. "Specifically the intersection of power, desire, and betrayal. Fascinating stuff, really. Very hands-on methodology." Jeremy's champagne glass trembled in his hand. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately." "Nonsense! Academic work should be shared with the community." I raised my voice just enough to draw attention from nearby conversations. In fact, Dr. Connors has been conducting groundbreaking research into marital relationships. He's developed some very innovative approaches to penetrating the subject matter. The double entendre wasn't lost on anyone with half a brain. Conversations around us began to quiet as people sensed drama brewing. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Jeremy said, his Harvard Polish starting to crack. "Has there? Because I have photographs, audio recordings, and financial records that suggest your research has been very thorough indeed." I pulled out my phone and held it up. "Would you like me to share some of your findings with your colleagues?" That's when Jeremy made his fatal mistake. Instead of trying to diffuse the situation, his arrogance took over. "You're obviously disturbed," he said loudly enough for half the ballroom to hear. "Everyone knows you've been struggling with paranoid delusions." The room went silent. "Paranoid delusions?" I repeated, my voice carrying clearly in the sudden quiet. "Is that what you call it when a husband discovers his wife's affair? When he finds evidence of conspiracy and attempted murder?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone's champagne glass shattered against the marble floor. "You're insane!" Jeremy snarled, abandoning all pretense of academic civility. "Am I?" I held up my phone again. "Should we let everyone decide for themselves?" That's when Jeremy lost it completely. He lunged at me, probably intending to grab my phone or knock me down. But I'd been expecting something like this. I sidestepped his clumsy attack, letting his momentum carry him into a table full of champagne glasses. The crash was spectacular. Crystal shattered, champagne sprayed across the floor, and Jeremy went down hard, his expensive tuxedo soaked and his dignity in ruins. "Security!" someone shouted, but I was already helping Jeremy to his feet with exaggerated concern. "Are you all right, Professor? You seem to have slipped. Maybe you should be more careful about who you're sleeping with. I mean, what you're drinking." The crowd pressed closer, smartphones appearing as people began recording the scene. In the age of social media, Jeremy's humiliation would be preserved forever. "You bastard," he whispered, as I brushed champagne off his lapels. "Careful, Professor. There are donors watching. Wouldn't want them to think you have anger management issues." Across the room, I saw Ronnie pushing through the crowd toward us, her face a mask of horror. Cassie was right behind her, probably hoping to do damage control. But it was too late for damage control. The story was already spreading through the ballroom like wildfire. The respected business professor, the cheating wife, the wronged husband's spectacular revenge. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, raising my voice to address the entire room. "I apologize for the disruption. Sometimes academic research gets a little messy. But that's what happens when you study the destructive power of betrayal." The crowd began to murmur, pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. These were intelligent people, and they could read between the lines. Jeremy struggled to his feet, his face red with humiliation and rage. "This isn't over," he hissed. "Yes, it is," I said quietly. "Your career is finished. Your marriage is over. Your reputation is destroyed. And everyone in this room now knows exactly what kind of man you really are." Security finally arrived, two burly men in ill-fitting suits who looked confused about what they were supposed to do. The situation wasn't violent anymore, just socially awkward on an epic scale. "Is there a problem here?" one of them asked. "No problem," I said cheerfully. "Dr. Connors just had a little accident. I think he might want to go home and change clothes." Jeremy looked around the ballroom at the sea of curious, judgmental faces, his academic peers, his potential donors, his professional colleagues. All of them now saw him as a laughingstock. "This is harassment," he said desperately. "I'll sue you for everything you have." "With what money?" I asked. "Your legal bills are going to be astronomical once the criminal charges are filed. And I doubt the university will keep paying your salary once they finish their ethics investigation." That's when Ronnie finally reached us, her face pale and her hands shaking. "Alex, please, not here. Not like this." "Why not here?" This is where you work, where you built your reputation. These are your colleagues, your peers. Don't they deserve to know what kind of person they've been working with? You're destroying everything, she whispered. I'm not destroying anything, Ronnie. I'm just revealing what was already destroyed. You did that when you decided to have me killed. The crowd pressed closer, eager to hear every word of this academic soap opera. I could see phones recording, social media posts being composed, the story spreading beyond the ballroom in real time. You want to know the truth? I announced to the room. My wife has been having an affair with Dr. Connors. They conspired to frame me as mentally unstable so she could win a divorce settlement. When that didn't work fast enough, they hired someone to kill me. The gasps were audible now, shocked exclamations rippling through the crowd. I have evidence, I continued. Photographs, audio recordings, financial records, text messages, everything. And it's all been turned over to the appropriate authorities. Jeremy tried one last desperate gambit. He's lying. This man is dangerous, unstable. Then why are you the one covered in champagne? I asked mildly. Laughter rippled through the crowd, cruel and decisive. In that moment, Jeremy's fate was sealed. He would never recover from this humiliation, never rebuild his reputation, never again command respect in academic circles. Ronnie grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Please, Alex, think about Sam. Think about our family. I am thinking about Sam, I said, gently removing her hand. That's why I'm making sure he never has to wonder if his mother tried to have his father murdered. Security was trying to disperse the crowd, but nobody wanted to leave. This was the kind of scandal that would be talked about for years, the night a respected professor's life imploded in spectacular fashion. Come on, one of the security guards said to Jeremy. Let's get you cleaned up. As they escorted him toward the exit, Jeremy turned back one last time. You think you've won? This isn't over, Rourke. Yes, it is, I called after him. Check your email when you get home. Your wife's attorney has some interesting news for you. And then he was gone, leaving behind only champagne stains and the ruins of his reputation. The crowd began to disperse, people clustering in small groups to dissect what they'd just witnessed. I could hear fragments of conversation. Always suspected something. Poor Alex. Never trusted that Connors. Ronnie stood alone in the center of the ballroom, tears streaming down her face, her career in ruins around her. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. 22 years, she said quietly. Was it worth destroying 22 years? You destroyed them, I replied. I just made sure everyone could see the wreckage. I finished my bourbon and set the empty glass on a nearby table. Enjoy the rest of the gala, Ronnie. I think this will be your last one. As I walked toward the exit, I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of betrayal, of secrets and lies and conspiracies had lifted from my shoulders. Justice had been served, publicly and completely. But I wasn't finished yet. There was still one more surprise waiting. The aftermath of the gala was everything I'd hoped for and more. By morning, the story had spread throughout the university community and beyond. Social media buzzed with videos of Jeremy's spectacular fall from grace. The local newspaper ran a front-page story about the academic love triangle scandal. The university announced immediate ethics investigations into both Ronnie and Jeremy. But the real satisfaction came from watching their world crumble piece by piece. Jeremy's wife filed for divorce within 48 hours, citing adultery and requesting everything in their substantial estate. The university suspended him pending investigation. His publisher canceled his book contract. 3 speaking engagements were rescinded. Ronnie fared no better. The State Bar Association opened an ethics inquiry. Her law school colleagues avoided her in the hallways. The paralegal firm where Cassie worked terminated her employment and banned her from the premises. I was sitting in my home office reading the latest developments online when Sam knocked on my door. Dad, can we talk? Of course, kiddo, come in. Sam closed the door behind him and sat in the chair across from my desk. He looked nervous, fidgeting with something in his hands. "I need to tell you something," he said. "About Mom and what's been happening." "What about it?" Sam took a deep breath and held up a small digital recorder. "I've been recording her conversations for 3 months." I stared at my son, speechless. "What?" I knew something was wrong. The late nights, the phone calls, the way she looked at you sometimes. So I started paying attention. He set the recorder on my desk. I recorded her talking to Cassie about the affair. I recorded her planning to frame you as unstable. I even recorded the conversation where she talked about having you hurt. Sam, I didn't know what to say. "I'm the one who sent you that first photograph. I took it with a telephoto lens from the computer lab window. I've been trying to protect you, Dad. I just didn't know how." The pieces fell into place. The anonymous envelope, the perfectly timed photograph, the detailed knowledge of Ronnie's movements. My 18-year-old son had been conducting his own investigation. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew you'd try to protect me, and because I wanted to make sure I had enough evidence to stop her." Sam's voice was steady, but I could see tears in his eyes. "She was going to destroy you, Dad. I couldn't let that happen." I reached across the desk and squeezed his shoulder. "You realize what this means? You've been carrying this burden for months, watching your mother plot against your father." "It wasn't Mom anymore," he said quietly. "The woman who raised me wouldn't have done these things. I don't know who that person was, but it wasn't my mother." We sat in silence for a moment, father and son united by betrayal and bound by love. "There's something else," Sam said. "I hacked into Jeremy's computer. He's been embezzling research grant money for 2 years. I have all the financial records." "Jesus, Sam, that's illegal?" "Yeah, I know. But so is conspiracy to commit murder." He managed a weak smile. "I learned from the best. You always said information is the most powerful weapon." "I meant legally obtained information." "Sometimes the law isn't enough, Dad. Sometimes you have to fight dirty to protect the people you love." Looking at my son, I saw myself 20 years ago, determined, resourceful, willing to bend rules to achieve justice. It should have worried me. Instead, I felt proud. "What do you want to do with the information?" "I want to finish this, all of it. Jeremy, Mom, Cassie, they all need to face consequences for what they did." That afternoon, we drove to the Riverside Park where the town was holding its annual autumn festival. Food trucks lined the waterfront, families strolled among craft booths, and a local band played on a temporary stage. It was the kind of wholesome community event that made small-town Maine feel like a Norman Rockwell painting. It was also where Ronnie, Jeremy, and Cassie had agreed to meet, thinking they could plan their next move in the anonymity of a crowd. Sam and I set up near the stage, where the sound system would amplify our voices across the entire festival. I'd convinced the organizers to let me make a community announcement about local security issues. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said into the microphone, my voice carrying across the park, "could I have your attention for a moment?" The crowd gradually quieted, faces turning toward the stage. I could see Ronnie and Jeremy near the food trucks, their expressions shifting from confusion to horror as they realized what was happening. "My name is Alex Rourke, and I want to share a story with you about betrayal, conspiracy, and the importance of community vigilance." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some people recognized me from the newspaper coverage. Others were just curious about this unexpected interruption to their festival day. 3 months ago, I discovered that my wife was having an affair with a university professor. That's unfortunate, but not uncommon. What made this situation different was their decision to frame me as mentally unstable, steal our assets, and ultimately arrange for my murder. The crowd was silent now, hundreds of people hanging on every word. "I have evidence of all of this. Photographs, audio recordings, financial records, and witness testimony. But what I want to share with you today is something even more disturbing. I gestured to Sam, who stepped up to a second microphone. My son Sam has been conducting his own investigation for months, trying to protect me from his mother's conspiracy. Today, he's going to play some recordings that demonstrate just how far some people will go to get what they want. Sam activated the digital player, and Ronnie's voice filled the park through the sound system. If Alex becomes a problem, we may need to take a more direct approach, whatever it takes to protect our future, including Sam if necessary. Gasps and exclamations erupted from the crowd. Parents pulled their children closer, horrified by the casual discussion of violence against a family. "That's my mother," Sam said into the microphone, his voice steady and clear, talking about having my father killed and threatening me if I got in the way. I could see Ronnie pushing through the crowd toward the stage, her face white with panic. Jeremy was right behind her, probably hoping to do damage control. "But wait," I said, "there's more." Sam played another recording, this one of Jeremy discussing financial arrangements with someone who was clearly a criminal contact. Then another of Cassie providing detailed information about my daily routine to facilitate the planned attack. By the time the recordings finished, the crowd was in an uproar. People were shouting questions, taking photos, calling the police on their cell phones. This wasn't just academic scandal anymore. This was attempted murder conspiracy playing out in front of the entire community. Ronnie finally reached the stage, tears streaming down her face. "Alex, please, stop this. Think about our family." "I am thinking about our family," I said into the microphone. "I'm thinking about the son who risked everything to protect his father. I'm thinking about the 22 years I wasted loving someone who was willing to have me killed." Jeremy appeared at the edge of the stage, his face red with rage. "This is harassment. This is illegal." "What's illegal," Sam said, stepping up to his microphone, "is embezzling research grant money, which you've been doing for 2 years. He activated another audio file, this one of Jeremy discussing how to hide stolen funds in offshore accounts. The crowd's reaction was immediate and visceral. These were taxpayers whose money had been stolen by a corrupt academic. "You little bastard!" Jeremy snarled, starting to climb onto the stage. That was his second fatal mistake of the week. I stepped between Jeremy and my son, and this time I wasn't interested in avoiding violence. When he swung at me, I caught his wrist and twisted until he dropped to his knees. "Don't," I said quietly, but the microphone picked it up and broadcast it across the park. "Don't even think about threatening my son." The crowd roared its approval. Whatever sympathy Jeremy might have retained evaporated in that moment. He wasn't just an adulterer and embezzler anymore. He was a man who would attack a teenager. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Someone had called the authorities, and they were responding in force. "This is our community," I announced to the crowd. "These are our neighbors, our friends, our families. We have a right to know when predators are living among us. We have a right to protect ourselves and our children from people who would lie, steal, and kill to get what they want." The crowd erupted in applause, a thunderous ovation that echoed across the water. I looked out at hundreds of faces, good people, honest people, who understood the difference between right and wrong. Ronnie was sobbing now, her reputation and career destroyed beyond repair. Cassie had disappeared into the crowd, probably hoping to avoid arrest. Jeremy knelt on the stage, his wrist still in my grip, his academic arrogance finally broken. "It's over," I said, releasing him. "All of it. The lies, the conspiracy, the betrayal. Justice has been served." The police arrived in force, multiple patrol cars and detective units responding to reports of public disturbance and criminal conspiracy. I recognized Detective Paul Harlan among them, my old friend who'd warned me weeks ago to be careful. "Alex," he said, approaching the stage. "We need to talk. I know. I have evidence of conspiracy to commit murder, embezzlement, ethics violations, and attempted assault. Everything's documented and ready for your investigation. As they led Jeremy away in handcuffs, he turned back one last time. You think you've won? You've destroyed everything. Your marriage, your family, your future. No, I said. I've saved everything that mattered. My son, my integrity, my self-respect. The rest was already destroyed by people like you. Ronnie was led away in a separate patrol car, still crying, still trying to explain how this had all been a misunderstanding. But the evidence was overwhelming, the recordings damning, the conspiracy undeniable. Sam stood beside me on the stage, watching his mother disappear into a future of legal battles and professional ruin. Are you okay? I asked. Yeah, he said. I think I am. For the first time in months, I think I'm okay. The crowd began to disperse, but people kept approaching to shake my hand, to congratulate me on my courage, to express their support. The community had witnessed justice in action, and they approved. As the sun set over the river, Sam and I stood alone on the stage, surrounded by the detritus of the festival and the wreckage of our old life. What happens now? He asked. Now we rebuild, just the two of us, the way it should have been from the beginning. No more secrets? No more secrets. We walked home together through the gathering darkness, father and son united by truth and strengthened by survival. Behind us, the festival lights flickered out one by one, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The war was over. Justice had been served. The underdog had won. And for the first time in months, I slept peacefully, knowing that sometimes the good guys really do finish first.